The tear in the void opened without warning, a silent scream of physics defying itself. Elias Holt fought the controls of the scout ship Stardust Drifter, his knuckles ghosting white under the pressure. One moment, he was charting unregistered gravitational anomalies on the fringes of explored space. The next, the ship was seized by forces that tore at its very structure. Stars smeared into streaks of impossible light. The comforting hum of the engines replaced by the shriek of tortured metal. Alarms wailed, strobing crimson light across his face, painting a mask of focused terror. He saw readings that made no sense, spatial distortions, temporal flux, energy levels off the known scale, a gravitational shear, unexpected, catastrophic. Through the swirling chaos engulfing the view screen, a world materialized, vast and ancient, painted in desolate hues of ochre, gray, and a bruised purple. It wasn't on any chart. It was a ghost in the machine of the cosmos, with the ship disintegrating around him, structural integrity collapsing. Elias jammed the atmospheric entry controls, a final, desperate prayer whispered into the comm loop he knew was already dead. The heat shield flared, a brief, incandescent shield against the inevitable. Then came the impact, a bone-shattering, mind-numbing collision that pitched him into darkness. Consciousness returned slowly, fragmented, like light filtering through broken glass. Silence pressed in, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the faint, rhythmic hiss of his suit's life support. Pain throbbed in his temples, his ribs, a dull inventory of survival. Emergency lighting cast feeble, flickering illumination across the ruined cockpit. The Stardust Drifter was a mangled sculpture of failure, its nose buried deep in alien soil. The rest twisted at an impossible angle. Through a gaping rent where the main view screen had been, Elias saw the landscape of his doom, or his purgatory. Colossal structures, impossibly ancient and vast, clawed at the sky, silhouetted against the weak, violet light of a sun that radiated weariness. Towers that scraped the thin clouds, arches that spanned canyons of artificial origin, walls etched with patterns eroded by time beyond reckoning. Dust, fine as powdered bone, coated everything, stirred occasionally by a wind too thin to howl. Only sigh. He checked his suit's readouts. Minimal oxygen, high nitrogen, trace elements unidentified, gravity slightly lower than standard G temperature dropping. As the alien sun crawled towards the horizon, he was alive, marooned in a graveyard of giants. He unstrapped himself, muscles screaming in protest, and salvaged what essentials remained. A standard medkit, miraculously intact, nutrient-paced rations, enough for perhaps 10 cycles if he was frugal. A multi-tool with a half-depleted power cell, his sidearm, a reliable pulse pistol, fully charged, and the emergency beacon. He activated it, knowing the signal was likely pouring into an uncaring void. But routine was an anchor in the storm of the unknown. Stepping out of the wreckage onto the powdery soil felt like violating a tomb. The scale of the ruins was disorienting, inducing a vertigo of insignificance. These structures weren't built. They were sculpted by titans, their purpose lost to ages Elias couldn't begin to fathom. He moved cautiously, pistol held ready, the silence amplifying the crunch of his boots, the whisper of the wind his only companion. He found shelter within the lee of a colossal, collapsed statue, its features worn smooth, suggesting a being humanoid but far larger, nobler than himself. He scanned the horizon constantly, searching for any sign of life, any movement beyond the dust devils dancing in the distance. Days, marked by the slow transit of the violet sun and the appearance of two dissimilar moons, one stark white, the other a baleful crimson, bled into one another. The beacon remained silent. Hope, that fragile human imperative, began to fray, replaced by a chilling certainty of isolation. Yet, the silence felt wrong, not empty, but expectant, as if the dust itself held its breath. It was on the cusp of the fifth cycle's twilight, as the crimson moon began its ascent, that he saw her, high atop the crumbling ramparts of what might have been a watchtower or a spire. A figure stood motionless against the deepening violet sky, tall, impossibly so, silhouetted like an ancient sentinel, clad in something that glinted faintly, segmentally, like the carapace of some immense insect wrought in bronze. Elias froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. His pistol came up, instinct overriding conscious thought. The figure didn't react, didn't shift. It simply was. Then, with a fluid grace that belied its obvious size and armor, it began to descend, not climbing, but flowing down the ruin, leaping across impossible gaps, moving with the certainty of one who knew every stone, every precarious edge. Fear, cold and sharp, warred with a desperate curiosity. This was life, alien and intimidating, but undeniably alive. As the figure drew closer, details resolved in the gloom. It stood at least 3 meters tall, the interlocking plates of its armor etched with intricate, swirling designs that echoed the carvings on the ruins. The material resembled aged bronze, yet seemed lighter, stronger. A helmet, sleek and covering the entire head, featured a narrow, horizontal visor from which 2 points of soft, unwavering blue light emanated, fixing Elias with an unnerving, unblinking stare. It carried no weapon that he could see, yet its entire bearing radiated power and immense antiquity. It stopped perhaps 15 meters away, the blue light seeming to pierce the twilight, examining him with unnerving intensity. A voice entered his mind, unbidden, resonant, carrying the faint chime of metal and the echo of vast, empty spaces. It was feminine, calm, yet held an ocean of weariness. You disturb the silence, star fallen. You are not of the dust. Elias flinched, startled by the telepathic contact, the sheer alienness of it. He kept his pistol raised, though his hand felt unsteady. Who are you? What is this world? I am Kaelari, the last watcher. This world is Varellan. It dreams a dying dream. The voice held no inflection he could recognize as emotion, yet sorrow permeated it like dust in the ruins. Watcher. Dreams. Elias struggled with the concepts. Are there others, like you? There were legions. Before the long dimming, before the great silence fell upon the world, a pause, filled only by the sighing wind. Now, only I remain. I tend the embers. I wait. Wait for what? He asked, lowering his pistol slightly. Intrigued, despite his fear, the blue light seemed to pulse, almost imperceptibly, for the unraveling of time, for the fulfillment, for the heart from the sky. The words resonated with ancient belief. The prophecy foretold your coming. Elias frowned, shaking his head. Prophecy. Heart from the sky. Look, I'm just a pilot. My ship crashed. An accident. I mean no harm. I'm just trying to survive. Survival is a consequence, not a purpose. Kaelari's mental voice was gentle, yet firm. The cosmos does not deal in accidents of this magnitude. Your arrival, at this precise juncture, as the core fades to its final resonance, it is ordained. You are Elias Holt, he started. How? Ship's logs, wreckage scan, or something else. How do you know my name? The stones remember. The air whispers. The planet felt your vessel's final cry, felt the spark of your life persisting against the odds. It recognized the pattern, the potential. Kaelari took a slow, deliberate step closer. Her movements were utterly silent. The prophecy speaks of one arriving in a chariot of broken stars, carrying an echo of the outer wilds, arriving when Varellan stands upon the precipice. You fit the weave, pilot. I'm not a savior, Elias insisted, feeling trapped in a narrative not of his making. I don't have special powers. I can't fix whatever is wrong here. The prophecy does not speak of power, but of connection, a catalyst, a bridge. Kaelari gestured, a slow sweep of an armored hand encompassing the vast, decaying city. Virulent's heart beats faintly. The core, the source of all life and energy here, gutters like a dying star. Without renewal, all will fade to static and silence. The prophecy promises a joining, a guardian and a skyheart to rekindle the flame. And you believe I'm this. Skyheart. Skepticism warred with a growing sense of unease, a feeling that he had stumbled into something far larger and stranger than a simple crash landing. Belief is all that remains when knowledge fades. Kaelari's voice was simple, yet held the unshakable conviction of millennia. The portents align. Your arrival shatters the long stillness. I feel a resonance from you. Pilot. Faint, untuned, but present. You carry the necessary frequency. Frequency for what? What is it you expect me to do? Observe, understand, choose. Kaelari turned, her towering silhouette stark against the rising moons. The path forward lies within the Temple of Echoes. It holds the memory, the ritual, the choice. Come. She began to move towards the deeper, more intact structures at the city's heart, moving with absolute confidence, not looking back. Elias hesitated for only a moment. His beacon was silent. His rations wouldn't last. The ruins offered slow starvation or madness. This alien guardian, Kaelari, offered something else. Answers, purpose, a chance, however bizarre, taking a breath that tasted of dust and ages. He holstered his pistol and followed the blue lights into the deepening shadows of the forgotten city, towards a fate woven by prophecy on a world lost to time. Their passage through the necropolis city was a journey through deep time. Kaelari moved with an unnerving familiarity, navigating avenues choked with rubble, traversing plazas vast enough to swallow armies, slipping through passages obscured by the slow collapse of ages. Elias struggled to keep pace, his human senses overwhelmed by the sheer scale and antiquity. Statues of Kaelari's people, noble and melancholic, watched their passing with sightless eyes, their forms eroded by forgotten winds. Faded frescoes on impossibly high walls hinted at a lost history. Star charts depicting unknown constellations. Scenes of beings working in harmony with energy fields. Images of construction on a planetary scale. And then, darker scenes, conflict, withdrawal, a creeping shadow. Kaelari offered no commentary, allowing the stones to speak their silent testament. Her presence was a steady weight beside him, the faint telepathic connection humming like a low-frequency current, conveying a sense of focused purpose and profound, abiding sorrow. Elias felt dwarfed, not just by the architecture, but by the weight of history, the palpable sense of loss that permeated the very air. What happened here? Elias finally broke the silence. His voice hushed in the echoing immensity. The long dimming, you called it, a slow uncoupling. Kaelari's mental voice resonated, tinged with ancient pain. Our bond with the planetary core, the wellspring of Varellan's life force, frayed. External wars across star systems we should never have touched drained our strength, while internal schisms blinded us to the decay within. We grew deaf to the core's song, turned our focus outward, upward, forgetting the foundation beneath our feet. The core, neglected, began to fade. The world grew cold. Life withered. My people. They scattered to distant stars, seeking refuge, or chose the long sleep in stasis, hoping for the awakening promised by prophecy. The awakening. That's where I come in, Elias stated, trying to grasp the enormity of it. You are the potential, Kaelari corrected gently. The prophecy foretold a moment of ultimate despair, when the core reached its nadir. Only then could an external resonance, a life force untainted by the withering, a heart from the sky, bridge the chasm, joining with the last guardian to plead for Varellan's renewal. Joining. How? The word felt loaded, intimate, alien. The temple holds the way, Kaelari replied, halting before a set of colossal doors set into the base of a structure less ruined than its neighbors, perhaps a central pyramid or shrine. The doors were seamless, wrought from the same bronze-like metal as her armor, etched with complex energy patterns and celestial diagrams. They looked sealed by time itself. Kaelari placed her gauntleted palm flat against the surface. The metal seemed to awaken, faint lines of blue light tracing the intricate carvings, converging beneath her hand like tributaries flowing to a river. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the ground, and with a groan that spoke of immense weight, shifting after millennia of stillness. The great doors slid silently open, revealing darkness beyond. They stepped inside, and the doors slid shut behind them, plunging them into initial blackness before soft, internal light gradually bloomed. It emanated not from fixtures, but from veins of luminous crystal embedded within the walls and ceiling, casting a gentle, ethereal glow. They stood in a vast, circular chamber, miraculously preserved. The air was still, cool, and carried a faint, almost subliminal hum. The walls were covered in murals, far more vibrant and detailed than those outside, glowing with their own soft light. And in the center, atop a multi-tiered dais, rested an intricate apparatus of interlocking rings, crystalline lenses, and energy conduits, all focused on a central crystal sphere. It pulsed with a faint, erratic light, like a faltering heartbeat. The core nexus. Kaelari breathed the words, reverence clear even in her mental voice. The focal point of Varellan's life force. What little remains. The murals told the story in breathtaking detail. A vibrant world teeming with life. Kaelari's people, depicted unarmored, living in symbiosis with the planet, shaping energy, communicating with the core. Then, images of conflict, ships blazing in orbit, scars appearing on the planet's surface, a gradual withdrawal, the light dimming in the murals, the figures growing fewer. Finally, the prophecy, a lone guardian, armored like Kaelari, standing before the fading nexus and descending from a vortex of stars, a figure wreathed in light, reaching out. Between them, energy flowed, the nexus flared, and the depicted world bloomed anew. The Skyheart. Kaelari gestured towards the star-fallen figure, not a conqueror, not a destroyer, a partner. The prophecy speaks of resonance, of shared intent, a voluntary joining of life essences to reignite the spark. Elias looked from the mural to Kaelari, her silhouette mirroring the guardian depicted, then to the sputtering nexus, joining of life essences. It sounded terrifyingly profound. What kind of joining? What does it require? Kaelari turned fully towards him. For the first time, she removed her helmet. The face revealed was strikingly alien, yet possessed a severe, imposing beauty. Her skin had the luster of pale, polished bronze, high cheekbones, a strong jawline. Features angular and refined. Her eyes were large, luminous orbs of liquid blue, pupil-less, radiating a soft light and unfathomable age. Short, metallic silver fibers, like fine wire, framed her face. Lines of weariness and sorrow were etched around her eyes and mouth, but beneath them lay a core of unyielding strength. It requires trust. Elias Holt, a conscious choice, a ritual binding, your spark, your vitality, willingly offered and accepted, merged with my own connection to this place, channeled through the nexus to awaken the slumbering core. She paused, the blue eyes searching his. It is not coercion. It is not sacrifice in the manner your people might conceive it. It is synergy, a linking of fates, of life force, a bond. A shiver traced its way down Elias's spine despite the chamber's neutral temperature. A ritual binding, merging essences with an alien guardian. It was madness, pure, unadulterated madness. Yet, the fading light of the nexus seemed to plead. Kaelari's unwavering gaze held not threat, but desperate hope. The alternative was slow death in the dust. This, however insane, was action, purpose, a chance. You said, partner. He focused on that word. You're sure it's not? Consumption. Partners, Kaelari affirmed. A flicker of something akin to relief in her luminous eyes. Life recognizes life. The core needs a bridge, not a sacrifice. Your willingness is the key that unlocks the potential. He studied the mural again. Two figures, different origins, reaching for each other. Partnership, a leap of faith off the edge of everything he knew. He met Kaelari's gaze. Okay, I don't understand half of this. It feels impossible. But staying here, doing nothing, guarantees failure. If there's a chance this can work, can save this world, I'm willing. Tell me what to do. A subtle relaxation eased the tension in Kaelari's stance. Stand opposite me, before the nexus. Open your mind, your intent. Let go of fear. Embrace the connection. Trust is the conduit. She guided him onto the first tier of the dais. The humming intensified as they approached the nexus, the central crystal pulsing a fraction more brightly, as if sensing their presence, their intent. Kaelari extended her left hand, palm upward. 3 long, elegant fingers and an opposable thumb. The bronze-hued skin smooth and cool to the eye. From a hidden sheath on her vambrace, she produced a thin, wickedly sharp crystalline blade. With a swift, precise motion, she drew it across her palm. No red blood welled, but rather a line of shimmering, silvery liquid, like mercury catching the light. She held her hand steady, offering it. Elias understood. Taking the sterile blade from his medkit, a primitive tool compared to hers, he hesitated only a second before making a matching incision across his own palm. Bright Terran red welled up, a stark contrast to her quicksilver fluid. Place your hand in mine, Kaelari instructed, her voice softer now, audible in the chamber's stillness. Not just in his mind. Let the essences mingle. Focus your will upon the nexus. Desire its awakening. Offer your spark. Taking a deep breath, Elias placed his bleeding hand onto hers. The contact sent a jolt through him, not of electricity, but of pure sensation, profound and startling. It wasn't unpleasant, but intensely intimate, a sudden awareness of her ancient consciousness, her deep, abiding connection to the very stones beneath their feet, her centuries of solitude, her burden of hope. Their blood swirled together, red and silver, forming intricate, temporary patterns on their joined palms. He felt her sense his own bewildered courage, his fear, his flicker of hope, his fundamental alienness. Together, they raised their joined hands, holding them over the central crystal of the nexus. The mingled drops fell. As they touched the crystal's surface, they didn't splatter. They vaporized into a mist of scintillating red and blue particles, which were instantly drawn into the crystal's heart. The effect was immediate. The nexus flared. The interlocking rings began to spin, slowly at first, then faster, emitting a resonant, multi-toned chord that vibrated through the chamber, through the dais, through Elias's very bones. He closed his eyes, focusing his intent, pouring his will, his life force, his desperate desire for survival and renewal into the bond, amplified and guided by Kaelari's immense, practiced control. Light blazed, filling the chamber, overwhelming his senses. He felt the connection deepen, felt Kaelari's presence merge with his own in a way that defied words, focused solely on the shared goal. And deep beneath them, he felt a response, a low, powerful thrum, like a colossal heart stirring from an eons-long slumber. Gradually, the light subsided. The spinning rings slowed, settling into a smooth, steady rotation. The nexus pulsed with a strong, healthy, vibrant blue light, the erratic flickering gone. The chamber's hum was now deeper, more resonant, imbued with undeniable power. Lines of light pulsed steadily through the crystalline veins in the walls. Elias felt utterly drained, yet strangely invigorated. He opened his eyes. Kaelari stood opposite him, her luminous eyes bright, reflecting the renewed glow of the nexus. A single silvery tear traced a path down her cheek. "It answers," Kaelari whispered, her voice filled with exhausted awe. The core stirs. The bond holds. Varellin breathes. They remained linked, hand in hand, the ritual complete. But the connection forged between them, now a tangible reality, a silent current flowing between two disparate souls, united by choice and the awakening of a world. The true work, Elias sensed, was only just beginning. The reawakening core sent subtle, pervasive waves of energy flowing outwards through Varellin's dormant circulatory system. Deep underground, ancient conduits, choked by millennia of neglect, began to thrum with renewed power. Automated systems, designed to respond to the core's resonance, flickered to life in isolated pockets across the globe. On the surface, the changes were less dramatic, yet palpable. The oppressive weight of silence seemed to lessen, replaced by a faint, planetary hum that resonated in the bones. The thin air tasted infinitesimally cleaner, carrying a charge it hadn't possessed before. Even the weak violet sun seemed less weary, its light fractionally warmer. Kaelari led Elias from the temple, her movements imbued with a new energy. The immense burden of her vigil lightened, replaced by the equally immense task of restoration. The bond between them had stabilized into a constant, low-level telepathic link, a silent stream of shared awareness, basic emotions, an intent that bypassed the need for constant verbal communication. Elias felt Kaelari's profound relief, tempered by caution and the understanding of the monumental effort still required. He sensed her awareness of his own awe, his lingering disorientation, his dawning sense of responsibility. The heart beats, but the body is weak, Kaelari projected, her mental voice clearer, stronger than before. The nexus is stable, but the network is fractured. We must restore the primary energy distribution grid, reactivate environmental regulators, cleanse the atmospheric processors. Decades of work for legions, now undertaken by two. Where's the priority? Elias asked, the scale of the surrounding devastation threatening to overwhelm him. One nexus restored felt like a single drop in a dead ocean. Energy flow is paramount. Kaelari indicated a series of massive skeletal towers marching away from the temple complex towards the horizon, connected by drooping, broken cables thicker than Elias's body. The primary conduits run beneath those accumulator pylons. Many are shattered, blocked by geological shifts or ancient conflict. We must clear the pathways, mend the junctions, coax the lifeblood back into the arteries of this world. Thus began a period of intense, grueling labor. Kaelari's innate understanding of Virilani technology was their map, guiding them through collapsed sublevels, echoing service tunnels, and vast, lightless machinery catacombs beneath the ruined city. Her strength was prodigious. She shifted debris Elias couldn't budge, tore through fused metal barriers, her armored form seemingly tireless. Elias, nimble and equipped with his multi-tool, focused on the intricate control interfaces, bypassing fried circuits, cleaning millennia of corrosive dust from delicate crystalline relays, rerouting power flows according to Kaelari's telepathically conveyed schematics, and the intuitive feel for the technology that seemed to flow through their bond. Progress was measured in meters cleared, junctions bypassed, faint lights flickering to life in long, dead sectors. Dangers were constant. Unstable structures groaned under shifting weight. Residual defense systems occasionally sputtered erratically, and pockets of toxic atmosphere lingered in sealed sections. Elias pushed his endurance to the limit, driven by the tangible results. The growing hum of restored systems, the undeniable sense of purpose. He learned to interpret the subtle shifts in the planetary hum, to anticipate Kaelari's needs before she voiced them, to function as an extension of her will while contributing his own unique perspective to problem-solving. Kaelari taught in turn, began relying on his adaptability, his knack for unconventional solutions born from human ingenuity and desperation. An effective, often silent, partnership emerged from the dust and decay. Time lost meaning, measured only in work cycles and rest periods. During brief halts, they shared Elias's rations, supplemented by phosphorescent fungi Kaelari identified in damp, shadowed niches, surprisingly palatable and energy-rich. In these moments of quietude, they spoke more, bridging the vast gulf between their experiences. Elias described Earth, the chaos and beauty of human civilization, the drive for exploration, the wonders and follies of his species. Kaelari listened intently, her luminous eyes absorbing his words, occasionally asking insightful, sometimes unsettlingly direct questions about human conflict, connection, and our relationship with our own world. Through the bond, she glimpsed flashes of his memories, crowded cities, blue oceans, green forests, the faces of people he'd known, a stark contrast to her millennia of solitude amidst ruins. In turn, Kaelari shared fragments of Virilani history, not just the decline, but the zenith. Their art, which integrated energy fields and consciousness. Their philosophy, centered on planetary symbiosis. Their understanding of harmonics and resonance as fundamental forces. She spoke of cities that sang, of skies filled with graceful energy craft, of a people deeply connected to each other and their world. Hearing of the beauty that was lost gave Elias a deeper appreciation for what they were trying to regain, making the abstract goal intensely personal. He felt the weight of her memories, the ghosts of the millions she had known and lost, the crushing burden of being the sole repository of a civilization's soul. Her loneliness resonated with his own, forging a bond deeper than the ritual alone could achieve. Your people build high, reach far. Kaelari observed one rest cycle, gazing up through a collapsed dome at the twin moons swimming in the dark sky. Do they anchor themselves as deeply into their world? Elias thought of Earth's scarred landscapes, its polluted oceans, its divided peoples, We struggle with that, he admitted. We yearn for connection, but often build walls instead. We're powerful, but not always wise. Wisdom is remembering the connections, Kaelari stated, a simple truth that resonated with the weight of ages. Forgetting is the first step towards the dimming. Their painstaking work, however, did not go unnoticed in the silence. The burgeoning energy signature of the reactivated conduits, though weak on a galactic scale, was a beacon of change on a world long considered inert. While repairing a critical power exchanger deep within a collapsed transit hub, alarms blared from a small Varelani scanner Kaelari had retrieved from a hidden cache, a device attuned to energy signatures. Multiple non-Varelani power sources were approaching their position, fast and erratically, off-worlders. Kaelari's mental voice was sharp, instantly alert. Her relaxed posture vanished, replaced by coiled readiness. An energy weapon compact and humming with latent power materialized in her hand from a thigh compartment, drawn by the scent of energy. "Who are they?" Elias asked, drawing his own pulse pistol, heart rate quickening. "Scavengers. Parasites." Kaelari's tone was cold. "Nomads who haunt the dead spaces, stripping wrecks and forgotten outposts. They sense the power flow, mistake it for unguarded salvage. They have no concept of restoration, only plunder." Moments later, harsh beams from portable spotlights lanced through the subterranean gloom. Scrabbling sounds and guttural shouts echoed down the tunnel. Figures emerged. A motley collection of bipedal reptilians and hulking insectoids got clad and scavenged, mismatched armor plating, wielding crude but functional projectile weapons, and sparking energy tools modified for combat. Their multifaceted eyes or slitted pupils gleamed with avarice as they took in the faint glow of the repaired exchanger, Kaelari's imposing form, and Elias. "Scrap!" hissed the apparent leader, a bulky reptilian with filed teeth and armor cobbled from various ships' hulls. "And guardians. Fancy armor, worth much." It gestured with its weapon, a stubby rifle dripping lubricant. "Hand over the tech-jot shiny one, and the little morsel. We take the energy node. This territory is under reclamation." Kaelari's voice boomed, amplified by the enclosed space, carrying an authority that momentarily made the scavengers hesitate. "Leave this place, or be removed." The leader's hesitation vanished, replaced by a guttural laugh. "Reclamation. This world is dead meat. We claim what we find. Kill them. Take it all." The tunnel exploded into violence. Slug throwers roared, spitting chunks of metal. Energy bolts sizzled through the air. Kaelari was a whirlwind of bronze armor and blue energy, moving with blinding speed. Her weapon fired precise blasts that sent scavengers flying or disabled their weapons. Her armor deflected their crude projectiles with contemptuous ease. Elias ducked behind a fallen stanchion, firing his pistol, aiming for exposed joints or weapon arms. The confined space made the firefight brutal and chaotic. An insectoid tried to flank him, scuttling along the debris-strewn floor. Elias spun, firing twice, the pulses punching through its thorax. It collapsed, twitching. Kaelari, meanwhile, had closed with the leader, disarming it with a swift blow and sending it crashing into its comrades with contemptuous strength. The scavengers, facing such disciplined and overwhelming power, broke quickly. They dragged their wounded, fired a few parting shots, and scrambled back into the darkness, their greed overcome by fear. Silence returned, heavy with the smell of ozone and spent charges. Elias checked his pistol, charge indicator flashing low. Kaelari deactivated her weapon, scanning the tunnel entrance. Her blue eyes narrowed. "That was efficient," Elias commented, adrenaline still pounding. They were disorganized, driven by greed, not strategy. Kaelari replied, but they are a symptom. As the core's energy spreads, virulence will appear on more scans. More will come. Some perhaps better equipped, better organized. We can't fight off the entire galaxy while trying to fix a planet. Elias stated the obvious. No. Kaelari agreed. She looked back towards the direction of the temple, a contemplative stillness settling over her. There is another measure, a contingency woven into the prophecies, an amplification beacon tied to the core. If we can restore enough of the primary network, stabilize the flow, we can activate it. It sends a focused signal, not randomly, but to specific coordinates, hidden refuges, deep space waypoints where fragments of my people might have endured. A call home, a beacon. Hope flickered anew in Elias. Can we reach it? Power it? It requires immense energy, far more than the Nexus currently provides to the fractured grid, Kaelari explained. We need to bring a major substation online, ideally one of the primary atmospheric regulators. They possess geothermal taps and massive energy capacitors. The closest functional one lies beneath the old planetary archives spire. Then that's our next objective, Elias said, determination hardening his resolve. The scavenger attack was a wake-up call. They needed help. They needed the beacon. It will be heavily ruined, Kaelari warned. That sector suffered greatly in the final conflicts, and the energy signature required to reactivate it will be significant. It will draw unwanted attention. We knew this wouldn't be easy, Elias replied, holstering his nearly depleted pistol. He looked at Kaelari, at the unwavering resolve in her luminous eyes, felt the steady pulse of the awakening world beneath his feet. Lead the way, guardian. Kaelari inclined her head, a gesture of acknowledgement, of shared purpose. They gathered there, tools, cast one last look at the secured exchanger, humming faintly in the darkness, and set off through the labyrinthine underworks towards the distant silhouette of the archive spire, towards the hope of allies and the certainty of greater dangers ahead. The journey towards the archive spire took them through sectors of the city that bore witness to cataclysmic destruction. Entire districts were collapsed into fused glass craters or tangled jungles of twisted metal girders. Kaelari navigated the treacherous landscape with grim familiarity, pointing out impact sites from orbital weapons, zones still radiating faint, dangerous energies from forgotten Virelani doomsday devices. It was a stark reminder of the self-inflicted wounds that had precipitated the long dimming. Elias felt a chill, realizing that the slow fading Kaelari described was preceded by furious, internecine conflict. Her people hadn't just faded away, they had torn themselves apart first. Yet, even here, amidst utter devastation, flickers of the planet's returning life were visible. Hardy, crystalline ferns pushed through cracks in the fused slag. Strange, six-legged insect-like creatures, drawn perhaps by the shifting energy fields, scuttled among the ruins. The air, though still thin and carrying the metallic tang of decay, felt less stagnant. The planetary hum was a constant companion, a subsonic vibration that seemed to promise resilience. Their progress was hampered not only by the terrain, but by increasing scavenger activity. The energy Kaelari was drawing to map the paths and bypass damage acted like chum in the water. They faced several more encounters. One group utilized sonic disruptors that momentarily interfered with Kaelari's armor systems and Elias's suit comms, forcing a tactical retreat and a long detour. Another attempted an ambush using cloaking technology, scavenged from some unknown wreck. nearly succeeding before Kaelari's enhanced senses detected the subtle spatial distortions. During that fight, Elias's pulse pistol finally succumbed to damage from a near miss. Its casing cracked, its emitter fused. Kaelari, seeing his predicament, retrieved a spare sidearm from her caches, a sleek, elegantly curved Virilani energy pistol. It felt light, almost alive in his hand, humming softly. Mastering its power output, its different firing modes, and its crystalline energy cell system became his new focus during brief pauses. These trials forged their partnership into something seamless. In combat, they moved as one entity, anticipating threats, covering blind spots, executing flanking maneuvers, communicated through fleeting thoughts, and shared situational awareness via the bond. Elias learned to read the subtle shifts in Kaelari's energy signature, knowing when she would attack, defend, or withdraw. Kaelari, in turn, utilized Elias's smaller size and unexpected tactics, directing him to exploit openings she created, trusting his aim with the Virilani weapon. The initial awe and apprehension Elias felt had transformed into deep respect and a fierce loyalty. He saw the flashes of pain behind Kaelari's stoicism when they passed sites of particular devastation, felt her unwavering commitment, and knew he would defend her and this world with his last breath. Kaelari's perception of him had also shifted, from prophesied tool to trusted ally, his resilience and willingness to adapt earning her quiet respect. They finally reached the base of the archive spire. It towered above them, a needle of dark crystal and metal piercing the violet sky, its upper reaches lost in the thin, alien clouds. The lower levels were scarred, melted, fused into grotesque shapes by unimaginable heat, likely from atmospheric friction during the ancient wars or a direct energy weapon strike. Finding an entrance seemed impossible amidst the devastation. Kaelari, however, scanned the fused base methodically, her blue eyes glowing brighter. After several minutes, she stopped before a section that looked no different from the rest. Placing her hand on it, she channeled a specific energy frequency. With a low groan, a section of the slagged wall retracted, revealing a shielded tunnel, surprisingly intact. Emergency access, Kaelari explained, heavily shielded against orbital bombardment, used by the archivists. Inside, the spire was a stark contrast to the external ruin. Though dark and silent, the structure was largely intact. Endless corridors lined with crystalline data matrices stretched upwards, silent repositories of a lost civilization's knowledge, history, and science. Most matrices were dark, their stored information inaccessible without the primary power systems online. The atmospheric regulator and its geothermal tap are in the lowest sublevels. Kaelari guided them downwards, bypassing deactivated security systems and navigating the silent labyrinth. It was designed to function semi-independently, but requires a significant external energy feed to restart its primary functions. Our work on the grid should provide enough initial power, if the connections are sound. The regulator chamber was immense, a cathedral of dormant alien technology. Huge pipes, conduits, and crystalline arrays filled the space, converging on a central control nexus dominated by a massive regulating crystal, similar in design to the core nexus, but larger, faceted, and currently inert. The scale of Virilani engineering continued to astound Elias. They set to work immediately, the task familiar yet more complex than the conduit repairs. Kaelari directed them to the primary geothermal intake valves and the main power couplings connecting to the planetary grid section they had painstakingly restored. Elias, growing more adept with the Virilani tools and his borrowed pistol's focused energy beam, cleared away solidified coolant leaks, fused connections corroded by time, and recalibrated delicate crystal interfaces under Kaelari's guidance. It was slow, meticulous work, requiring intense concentration from both of them. They had to not only repair the damage of millennia, but also ensure the regulator could handle the sudden influx of power without cascading failures. After what felt like days of continuous effort, tracing circuits, rerouting power around irrevocably damaged sections, coaxing life back into the ancient machine piece by piece, they reached the final stage, activating the primary initiation sequence at the central control nexus. As Kaelari prepared to interface with the main crystal, a deep tremor shook the chamber, far stronger than any they had felt before. Dust rained from the impossibly high ceiling. Loose panels rattled. What was that? Elias braced himself against a humming conduit. Core stabilization flux, Kaelari replied, her mental voice tight with concentration as she monitored the energy readings flooding her senses. The network is adjusting to the increased load, propagating waves. Wait. Her focus sharpened instantly. Alarms, silent but urgent, pulsed through their bond from her internal sensors. Multiple energy signatures converging, above us, rapidly, and, disciplined. Scavengers, found us again. Elias raised the Virilani pistol, scanning the access ways. No. Kaelari's tone was grim, heavier than when facing the disorganized pirates. These signatures are military-grade, coordinated movement, high-energy weapons signatures. This is not random. As if summoned by her words, heavy, rhythmic impacts echoed from the main access tunnel. Figures emerged, not ragged scavengers, but soldiers, clad in sleek, obsidian black armor that seemed to drink the ambient light. They moved with chilling efficiency. Weapons, advanced energy rifles, held at the ready. More figures rappelled down on energy lines from conduits high overhead, swiftly taking flanking positions, cutting off potential escape routes. Within moments, Elias and Kaelari were surrounded by at least 24 hostile, disciplined soldiers. Then, a new figure entered, flanked by 2 imposing guards whose armor bore subtle command insignia. This individual was unmistakably Virilani, taller even than Kaelari, radiating an aura of immense power, arrogance, and a bitterness so profound it felt like a physical force. The ornate black armor was scarred and pitted, suggesting countless battles fought long after Virelan's fall. The helmet was fashioned in the stylized likeness of a predatory avian skull, and behind the visor, eyes glowed with a cold, malevolent red light. Kaelari, the voice that sliced into their minds was amplified, distorted, dripping with contempt. Still playing caretaker to this mausoleum, still chasing phantom prophecies while the universe burns. Kaelari straightened, her own weapon held ready, her stance radiating defiance despite the overwhelming odds. The blue lights of her eyes met the intruder's red glare. Malachor, I had hoped the silence had finally claimed your corrupted soul. The silence claims only the weak, the faithful, the foolish, Malachor sneered, his crimson gaze sweeping over Kaelari, then flicking dismissively towards Elias. Those like you, who waited for miracles. We, who embraced the chaos, grew strong. We adapted. We survived. We took. You betrayed everything the Virilani stood for, Kaelari countered, her voice resonating with cold fury. You abandoned our world, doorways, our connection. Your connection led to stagnation and ruin. Malachor gestured contemptuously at the dormant regulator. Faith in whispers and dying embers. Power is the only enduring truth in this cold cosmos, Kaelari, and this deeing world still possesses resources, technology, residual energy. His red eyes gleamed, We detected the significant energy draw as you attempted to revive this relic. Commendable effort. You've warmed the engine for us. My technicians will bypass your quaint restorations and drain the core directly. Its remaining energy will power my fleet for the next conquest. You would bleed the core dry, extinguish the last spark of Varellin forever, Kaelari accused, horror mixing with her anger. A battery is only useful when it provides power, Malachor retorted with chilling pragmatism. Its life is irrelevant. My forces are already moving to secure the Nexus chamber. This regulator hub will serve as my command center. He regarded Kaelari with a calculating look. You, however, Doc, could still be useful. Your knowledge of these ruins, invaluable. Swear allegiance to me, Kaelari. Help me harness this world's dying gasp, and you will have a place in the new order I forge among the stars. An order of strength. He glanced at Elias again, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features. Dispose of the off-world anomaly. It is unnecessary. A surge of protective fury washed through Elias. Unnecessary. After all they had endured, all they had accomplished. He tightened his grip on the Virulani pistol, its energy humming in response to his anger. Never. Kaelari's reply was absolute, echoing in the vast chamber. I will defend this world's chance at renewal from scavengers like you, Malachor, who feed on death. Malachor actually chuckled, a dry, rasping sound devoid of humor. So predictable, so disappointing. He raised a black gauntleted hand. Secure the chamber. Her knowledge is valuable. Take her functional if possible. Eliminate the human interference. The black-armored soldiers advanced, a disciplined wave of lethal intent, their energy rifles opening fire. Kaelari met them head-on, becoming a blur of motion, bronze armor deflecting energy bolts, her own weapon firing with devastating accuracy. She moved like an ancient storm, precise and terrible, years of solitude replaced by righteous fury. Elias dove behind the massive control nexus, using its bulk for cover, firing targeted shots from his Virulani pistol. The weapon felt like an extension of his will now, its energy blasts surprisingly potent, punching through the advanced dark armor at vulnerable points he instinctively targeted. Joints, sensor clusters, weapon emitters. Malachor initially held back, observing the battle with cold detachment, allowing his elite guard to handle the engagement. But Kaelari was more than they could handle alone. She disabled 4 soldiers in rapid succession, her combat style a whirlwind of perfectly executed blocks, strikes, and energy bursts. Elias, using the Nexus as cover, managed to neutralize 2 more who tried to flank Kaelari, his shots finding gaps in their armor. Seeing his forces faltering, Malachor finally entered the fray, with a snap hiss. A blade of unstable, crackling red energy materialized from an emitter on his gauntlet. He lunged at Kaelari, his movements brutally fast, his power overwhelming. Their weapons clashed. Blue energy against red, the impact sending shockwaves through the chamber. Malachor pressed his attack relentlessly, his strength and aggressive style forcing Kaelari onto the defensive, her movements hampered by the need to protect the control nexus behind her. Elias knew Kaelari couldn't fight Malachor and his remaining soldiers indefinitely. They needed a game changer. His eyes fell on the control nexus. The final activation sequence Kaelari had been initiating. An idea, reckless and desperate, formed. Kaelari. He projected through the bond, focusing the image of the main geothermal intake valve controls they had repaired earlier, linked to the regulator crystal she was trying to activate. The regulator. Can you trigger an uncontrolled surge? A feedback loop. Kaelari, barely parrying a vicious sequence of strikes from Malachor's energy blade, caught his desperate thought. Understanding flared in her eyes. instantly grasping the insane risk. A surge could irretrievably damage the regulator, possibly even destabilize the awakening core, but it might buy them the chaos they needed. While locked in combat, never taking her eyes off Malachor, she subtly shifted her mental focus, manipulating the energy flows she was already connected to within the Nexus. Elias scrambled towards the geothermal control interface panel nearby, dodging energy bolts from Malachor's remaining guards. He ripped the access panel off, exposing the glowing, crystalline conduits within. Focusing the beam of his pistol, he poured energy directly into the primary flow modulator. Following the overload sequence Kaelari projected into his mind, a complex resonance pattern designed to cascade violently. Human fool. Malachor snarled, sensing the shift in energy, pressing his attack on Kaelari with renewed ferocity. Do you think such pathetic tricks can? His words were choked off as the massive regulator crystal in the center of the Nexus flared with blinding, unstable light. Energy surged uncontrollably through the ancient conduits, far exceeding their tolerances. Alarms shrieked from multiple systems. Wild arcs of raw power lashed out from overloaded junctions, striking walls, machinery, and soldiers indiscriminately. The chamber plunged into chaos, the disciplined attack dissolving into panic as soldiers were struck down or their equipment short-circuited violently. Malachor himself recoiled, momentarily blinded and stunned by the sheer energetic force unleashed, his concentration broken. Kaelari didn't hesitate. Exploiting the momentary opening, she executed a powerful maneuver, striking his weapon hand, sending the red energy blade skittering across the floor, then slamming a focused kinetic strike into his chest plate. The blow cracked the obsidian armor, throwing Malachor off balance, sending him staggering back into the maelstrom of arcing energy. Elias. Now, Kaelari yelled, both aloud and through their link, grabbing his arm, while Malachor roared in fury and pain amidst the energy storm, and his remaining soldiers scrambled for cover or were incapacitated. Kaelari pulled Elias towards a secondary egress, a heavy blast door hidden behind dormant machinery. Forcing it open with her remaining strength, they plunged through into the darkness beyond just as the main regulator crystal overloaded completely, erupting in a contained but devastating cascade of pure energy that engulfed the center of the chamber, silencing Malachor's curses and the crackle of weapons fire in a wave of white heat and force. They stumbled through lightless emergency tunnels, the distant roar of the overloaded regulator fading behind them, replaced by an ominous, heavy silence. Elias leaned against the cold tunnel wall, gasping for breath, the phantom crackle of energy still echoing in his ears. Is he gone? Elias managed to ask. The surge was considerable, Kaelari replied, her own breathing heavy. Even her enhanced physiology was taxed by the fight and the feedback from the energy release. Malachor is exceptionally resilient, protected by enhanced armor and perhaps other means. He may have survived, but his plan to use the regulator is certainly ended, and he knows, now, definitively, that the core is awakening. She paused, accessing the network status through her internal systems. The energy cascade from the regulator. It sent a massive pulse through the grid before collapsing, uncontrolled, destructive, but powerful. Her mental voice gained a spark of hope. It might be enough, Elias. A temporary surge, stored in the network capacitors near the temple, enough to power the beacon. Then we don't have time to waste. Elias pushed himself off the wall. He'll go for the Nexus now. Try to take the core itself. We have to get to that beacon first. The primary beacon control is atop the highest communication spire, near the temple complex. Kaelari confirmed. We must reach it before Malachor can regroup his forces or reach the Nexus. They moved swiftly, navigating the deep access tunnels. Kaelari choosing routes less likely to be compromised, avoiding the main thoroughfares Malachor's troops might use. The planetary hum felt agitated now, disturbed by the violent energy release. They were in a race against a ruthless enemy, with the fate of Virulin and the hope of summoning aid hanging in the balance. Emerging into the ruined cityscape near the Temple District, they saw immediate signs of conflict, scorch marks on buildings, discarded energy cells of Malachor's design, the distant sound of sporadic weapons fire. Malachor's forces were already deploying, attempting to cordon off the area around the Temple of Echoes, clearly intending to seize the Nexus. The communications spire, a slender, impossibly tall needle of dark metal and crystal, soared above the surrounding ruins nearby. They needed to reach it, unseen if possible. Kaelari led Elias through a network of overgrown, collapsed structures and ancient serviceways, bypassing Malachor's patrols. Using her knowledge of the city's hidden passages, they reached the base of the communications spire undetected. Unlike the archive spire, this structure seemed less damaged, perhaps deemed less strategically important in the ancient wars. Kaelari located another shielded access point, and they began their ascent. Inside, grav lifts were partially functional, drawing power from the nearby Nexus and the residual surge Kaelari had detected. They rose rapidly through the spire's core, the ruined city sprawling below them, visible through reinforced viewports. The beacon control chamber was near the spire's apex, a circular room offering a stunning panoramic view. In the center stood the activation console, a complex arrangement of crystalline touch interfaces, dot-focusing lenses, and energy conduits aimed at a massive antenna array integrated into the spire's structure overhead. The console glowed faintly, pulsing with the stored energy from the regulator's demise. The charge is unstable, dissipating, Kaelari reported, her hands flying over the intricate controls, initiating the complex activation sequence. Ancient Virulani symbols flared to life on the crystalline displays. We have only moments to shape and transmit the signal before the capacitors are depleted. Elias stood guard at the entrance, Virulani pistol ready, listening intently. He could hear the whine of grav lifts ascending from below, the clang of armored boots. They were being pursued. They're coming. He warned Kaelari. Almost there, Kaelari murmured, her entire focus on the console, guiding the fluctuating energy, shaping the subspace transmission packet, encoding the call for help, the coordinates of Virulin, the guardian's signal of awakening. The lenses above the console began to glow intensely, gathering the energy for the final pulse. The chamber door exploded inwards. Malachor stood there, his black armor scarred, cracked, smoking from the energy bath in the regulator chamber, but he was alive, his red eyes burning with incandescent rage. Two of his elite guards, similarly damaged but functional, flanked him. Going somewhere, Guardian, he snarled, stalking into the room. Your little surge only delayed the inevitable. There is no one left to answer your pathetic call. You know nothing of loyalty, Malachor, or hope, Kaelari replied, her hands moving in a final dot complex pattern across the console, never looking up. The humming from the console reached a fever pitch. Stop her! Malachor bellowed at his guards. They lunged forward, rifles firing. Elias met their charge, positioning himself as a shield between them and Kaelari. He fired rapidly, using the console base for momentary cover, his shots precise, disabling one guard's weapon arm, sending the other staggering back with a smoking impact crater on his chest plate. Malachor ignored the guards, ignored Elias, his focus entirely on Kaelari. He raised his remaining gauntlet, energy crackling around it, intending to smash the console, to silence the beacon, to crush Kaelari herself. But he was a fraction too late. Kaelari slammed her palms down onto the master crystal interface. A beam of pure, coherent energy, white-hot and silent, erupted from the console, lancing upwards through the focusing lenses, striking the antenna array high above. The entire spire resonated like a colossal tuning fork, struck by a giant hand. The beam pierced the heavens, a directed, instantaneous pulse across subspace, carrying Virelon's desperate plea, Kaelari's ancient call sign, the signature of an awakening core aimed at coordinates held secret for millennia. The stored energy discharged in that single, titanic burst, leaving the console dark and silent, its capacitors utterly drained. The energetic backlash threw Kaelari backwards, away from the console, her systems momentarily overloaded. Malakor's blow, aimed at her position, missed, striking the now inert console with a shower of sparks. Seeing his plan thwarted, seeing the beacon fired, Malakor roared in primal fury. He turned his rage on Elias, swatting aside his pistol with contemptuous ease and delivering a brutal backhand blow that sent Elias crashing against the far wall, stars exploding behind his eyes. Insolent vermin! Malakor advanced on the stunned Elias, raising his crackling gauntlet for a final blow. You chose poorly. Before the blow could fall, Kaelari, recovering with astonishing speed, launched herself at Malakor, tackling him with the force of a small vehicle. They crashed together against the transparent steel viewport, the impact threatening to shatter it. They grappled, Kaelari's calculated defense against Malakor's berserk fury, bronze armor against scarred black. The remaining guard moved to aid Malakor, but Elias, shaking off the cobwebs, retrieved his fallen pistol and fired a warning shot that made the soldier hesitate. The struggle between the two Virelani was titanic. A clash of opposing philosophies and ancient grievances made manifest. They slammed into equipment racks, tore conduits from the walls, their battle illuminated by the emergency lights and the distant stars visible through the viewport. Kaelari fought with the desperation of a guardian protecting her last hope, while Malakor fought with the nihilistic rage of a being consumed by power and bitterness. Suddenly, a new sound penetrated the chamber, a deep, resonant hum from outside, growing rapidly louder, accompanied by flashes of brilliant blue light that strobed through the viewport. Elias risked a glance. Descending through the thin clouds were ships, sleek, organic curves, glowing with soft blue energy, utterly unlike the crude scavenger vessels or Malakor's brutalist warships. They were Virelani, elegant, powerful, ancient. The beacon, it had worked. Someone had answered. The arriving ships wasted no time. Precise beams of blue energy lanced down, targeting Malakor's forces around the temple and the spire base, disabling vehicles, neutralizing weapon systems, sowing chaos among the attackers with surgical precision. Seeing the sudden arrival of reinforcements, seeing ships bearing the ancient sigils, Malakor's last guard in the chamber froze, his weapon lowering involuntarily in shock and disbelief. Malakor saw them too. His red eyes widened, first in stunned disbelief, then narrowed into slits of pure hatred. He shoved Kaelari away with a final burst of strength, stunning her momentarily, and made a desperate sprint for the chamber exit. This changes nothing. Kaelari! His venomous thought echoed in their minds. Virulent's spoils will be mine, or they will be no one's. He vanished down the corridor, just as the first of the newly arrived Virilani soldiers entered the chamber. They wore gleaming silver and blue armor, starkly different from Malakor's black, their weapons held ready, their blue eyes assessing the scene rapidly. They saw Kaelari struggling to rise, leaning against the damaged console. Instant recognition dawned. Their professional readiness dissolved into something else, awe, reverence. As one, they lowered their weapons and dropped to one knee, placing a fist over their heart chambers in the ancient salute of utmost respect. Guardian Kaelari. The leader's voice, clear and strong in their minds, resonated with emotion. The signal. We received the awakening signal. We are the shield remnant of Talonor. We held vigil in the deep dark, as commanded by the last council, awaiting the call. We are few, but we answered. Kaelari pushed herself fully upright, the weariness of ages seeming to momentarily lift. She looked at the kneeling soldiers, symbols of a past she thought utterly lost. She looked at Elias, who was cautiously approaching, pistol lowered. She looked out at the descending blue ships, mirroring the light of the revived Nexus. Overwhelming relief, profound and bone deep, washed through her. A wave Elias felt clearly through their bond. You came. Kaelari's voice was thick, unsteady. You answered the call. Virulent, endures. The awakening is upon us. The soldiers rose, their faces strikingly similar to Kaelari's, though younger, less burdened by time, filled with fierce hope. They looked from their legendary guardian to the human standing beside her, curiosity and understanding dawning in their eyes as they comprehended his role. They had waited generations, clinging to fading legends in the void. Now, against all odds, they were home. The long night was ending. The arrival of the Talonor shield remnant, though numbering only 3 cruisers and a handful of support craft, shifted the balance instantly. Led by the capable Commander Lyra, the soldier who had first addressed Kaelari, they swiftly established orbital superiority and secured the Temple District, neutralizing or capturing the remnants of Malakor's scattered forces. Their technology, though ancient, was impeccably maintained and wielded with disciplined skill. Malakor himself evaded capture, melting back into the vast, labyrinthine ruins like a phantom, his parting threat hanging heavy in the air. Elias found himself navigating a surreal new reality. He was the alien, the anomaly, yet inextricably bound to the Guardian and the planetary revival he had helped trigger. Lyra and her soldiers treated him with a quiet respect that bordered on reverence, aware of the prophecies and his role as the catalyst. The heart from the sky. Kaelari, however, made their relationship clear, introducing him not merely as a fulfillment of prophecy, but as Elias Holt, her partner, who had stood against the darkness by choice. This framing earned him acceptance, integrating him into the nascent community, not as an icon, but as an individual. The Talonor fleet brought more than just soldiers. They brought advanced medical technology, energy systems expertise, atmospheric processing units far more efficient than the damaged planetary ones, and, got crucially, preserved gene banks and slumbering minds, digital consciousnesses, and cryogenically frozen Virilani saved during the final exodus. The pace of restoration accelerated exponentially. Teams guided by Kaelari's encyclopedic knowledge and Lyra's logistical skill fanned out, repairing critical infrastructure, establishing secure power grids, and beginning the delicate process of environmental remediation. Deep within protected vaults near the temple, chambers Elias hadn't known existed held rows upon rows of sleek stasis pods. These were the sleepers, Virilani who had chosen hibernation over flight millennia ago, entrusting their fate to the guardian and the prophecy. With stable power now available, Lyra's medical teams began the careful, resource-intensive process of reviving them. Elias watched, profoundly moved, as the first pods opened. Virilani, looking disoriented and ancient, slowly awakened to a world reborn. Kaelari greeted each one personally, her presence a beacon of continuity and reassurance. The reunions were intensely emotional, elders finding their world not dead but stirring, learning of the Guardian's long vigil and the arrival of the Skyheart. Tears, silvery like Kaelari's, flowed freely. Elias felt a sense of profound otherness during these reunions, a reminder of his own disconnected past. He was instrumental, yet apart. Sensing his complex emotions through the bond, Kaelari sought him out during a quiet moment. "Do not hold yourself separate, Elias." Her mental voice was gentle. "Your spark ignited this flame. Your courage defended it. You are woven into the tapestry of Virelan's second dawn." He knew she spoke truthfully, yet the question of his own future lingered. Could he ever return to Earth? Would he even want to? The thought of leaving Kaelari, leaving this world he had helped save, now felt like a potential amputation of the soul. The bond, initially strange and invasive, had become a source of profound connection and understanding. Months flowed into one another, marked by tangible progress. The reactivated atmospheric processors, augmented by Talonor technology, began scrubbing the air clean. Clouds formed more readily, grew heavier, and soon, gentle, persistent rain fell across vast swaths of the planet for the first time in memory. Dormant native seeds, waiting patiently in the dust, responded with explosive life. Vast plains, once barren ochre, blushed with the pale green of hardy pioneer grasses. Strange, resilient fungi unfurled caps like colored jewels. The planetary hum deepened, grew more complex, a symphony of awakening systems and returning life. The revived sleepers, along with Lyra's crews, threw themselves into the work. They cleared ruins not just for function, but for aesthetics, integrating new structures built from light-shaping energy fields and smart materials with the ancient stone, creating a city that honored the past while embracing the future. Hydroponic domes provided sustenance, while teams carefully reintroduced genetically preserved native flora and fauna into reclaimed habitats. The city around the temple began to breathe again, vibrant and filled with purpose. It was named Kalen Thar, First Light City. Elias found his niche. His pilot's understanding of physics and engineering, though different from Virilani principles, offered fresh perspectives. He helped Lyra's teams adapt their small reconnaissance flyers for atmospheric surveys, worked with engineers bridging the interface gaps between salvaged human tech components and Virilani systems, and shared his broader knowledge of galactic species and politics, helping the nascent government prepare for potential future off-world contact. He taught, he learned, he contributed. He was no longer just the catalyst or the partner. He was a citizen of the new Virelan. His relationship with Kaelari settled into a deep, comfortable rhythm. The constant telepathic link became an unobtrusive background hum, a silent conversation of shared thoughts, emotions, and companionship that transcended words. They were partners in leadership, their complementary strengths guiding the restoration effort. But beyond their duties, they found quiet moments, walking through the burgeoning city parks where alien trees now grew, or standing atop the communications spire, watching the twin moons traverse a sky slowly beginning to show hints of blue. It wasn't passion in the human sense, but a profound alignment of spirit, a deep, abiding affection built on mutual respect, shared trials, and the miracle they had wrought together. One cycle, as the violet sunset, painting the sky in hues of lavender and rose. They stood on a high balcony overlooking Kaelari. Lights twinkled across the city. The air carried the scent of damp earth and alien blossoms, and the steady, healthy thrum of the fully awakened core resonated beneath their feet. "It truly lives again," Elias murmured, awe still touching him even after all this time. "Life persists," Kaelari replied, her luminous eyes reflecting the city lights. "Hope endures, if only one is left to hold it. You helped hold it, Elias Holt. You chose to stand, when you could have cursed your fate and faded with the dust." He looked at her, at the serene strength that had replaced the deep weariness he first encountered. "My fate brought me here, but I chose to stay. This is home now, more than Earth ever was." Kaelari reached out, her hand resting lightly on his forearm. The contact was warm, familiar, comforting. The bond between them pulsed with quiet affirmation. "Then your place is here, by my side, as friend, as partner, as builder of Varellan's future." He met her gaze, the deep blue orbs holding millennia of wisdom, and now, a shared hope. The gnawing loneliness that had defined his life before Varellan was gone, replaced by a profound sense of belonging. The prophecy hadn't just been about restarting a planet, it had been about forging a connection strong enough to bridge universes. "I choose Varellan," he said, his voice steady. "And I choose you, Kaelari, always." A rare, genuine smile transformed Kaelari's ancient features, making her look almost young. The bond resonated with shared contentment, a silent promise sealed under the light of two moons. Years unfolded like blossoming flowers. Varellan healed. Kaelari grew into a thriving, beautiful city, a beacon of hope. Guided by follow-up signals, other small groups of Varellani survivors found their way back across the gulfs of space, rejoining their kin, adding their strength to the rebirth. Though Malachor was never confirmed captured or killed, his threat faded into legend, a dark shadow against the brightness of the new dawn. Elias and Kaelari continued to lead together, their partnership a symbol of the unity and resilience that had saved their world. The human pilot and the ancient guardian, brought together by cosmic chance and prophecy, had not only reignited a dying planet but had built a future founded on trust, courage, and a love that spanned the stars. Varellan, the world abandoned for ages, sang its song of life once more, a vibrant testament to the enduring power of hope and connection.